Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. This is your host, Emmett Muckles. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad. You woke up. You opened your eyes. You breathe the air. Might not be the greatest because I'm near Chicago, but you did. So this is the billionaire lifestyle. People think it's about money. And every time they listen to the podcast, they go, oh, snap. He's talking real talk. It is about you. It is about you and your pivot, what you need to do to navigate this life. You are a billionaire. 30 days after your inception, your parents, or however those two little cells came together, and the cosmic dance began, 2 to the power of 30 is over $1 billion. So now start living. Today, my guest, I have, and now this is going to be a good one because, you know, everybody's got a partner in some form or fashion. And Allen and Talia are going to help you and me navigate how to not be just roommates, how to be partners in life, partners in rhyme, and partners in crime. How you guys doing today?
We're great.
We're great. We're just excited to be here. Definitely a big fan of your show.
That's awesome. You know, I'm really a fan of someone who can create their own purpose, and that purpose can sustain their life, which means give them a living. And what it also does is set you up to be a mentor. So because you've navigated the waters to see how things are, and especially with you guys, because people can navigate towards a journey and end up being roommates instead of partners in life. How did you guys come to this realization that it's more than just a bond between a man and a woman, a man and a man, a woman and a woman nowadays? Communication and all these things, because, and I'm getting winded because I'm very versed in this. And the reason I'm very versed in this is because I know typically when it comes to a relationship, which you guys provide an easy do-it-yourself guide to a better relationship, it usually starts out from a lust base and we don't know it, versus starting out from a spiritual or an intellectual base, which is what it used to be before they literally brought love into the fold of relationships. How did you guys come to your calling with this?
Well, I would say it's twofold. So we are, our careers are marriage and family therapists. So we see people, we see relationships, we see partnerships all the time. So there's the professional aspect of that. But then there's the personal, which, you know, you have busy lives, you raise kids, you're doing your career, running around, and slowly, we found ourselves becoming roommates. You know?
Well, it's like, you know, when you work in our field and we specialize in relationships and couples counseling, you would think that so many people are coming in for very, very significant reasons, infidelity, trust issues. But the majority of the reasons why people come in is communication. And they're not really having it anymore. They're exhausted every day through kids or whatever their responsibilities are. And they're just checking from each other. And as a result, you know, they do talk when they have to. I mean, they do have to figure out what they're buying together, what plans they've made, how, you know, certain financial situations are going, but they're not really friends anymore. Yeah. And they just sort of like coexist in a parallel way.
Yeah, it's like the logistics of life. You know, they talk about that. They talk about the neighbors. They talk about things that are not related to the relationship itself. And
then eventually there's no more sex. And then it truly is just like a logistical roommate that you live with.
Now, I thought about this morning. There's an addendum podcast that probably will go very well with this, which was I did a podcast with a young lady from a TED Talk about sexless marriage. Mm-hmm. And it was deep. It was very deep. You know, you start off a relationship, your intercourse of every nature is usually paramount. You're just firing on all cylinders. And she said that what happens is a chemical thing. It's literally a chemical thing. Your pee, phenylethylamine, wears off, and you just become, you love somebody just because of the bond, but the attraction falls off, and that communication is key. What about, this negative self-talk that individuals have inside a relationship that kind of ruins things or separates the waters between the two?
So, what you were just saying is that at the beginning of the relationship, you have all of these great feelings towards one another. And that goes hand in hand with the narrative in your mind. You think great things about this person. You can't wait to see them. You're excited. When they mess up, you're even making excuses in your own head about why they messed up. And slowly, that narrative in our mind changes. And over time, all we could see is their faults, the things they didn't do, the things they didn't pick up. So when that narrative turns negative, we see our partner in a different light. We don't see them. We don't give them the benefit of the doubt anymore.
Yeah, I think what also, like, to piggyback on what you're saying, I think in those early stages, you don't have to rely on the other person. And it's not until they can really disappoint you that you're going to start to develop those negative thoughts, because you need them to pay the bills. You need them to do the things they're asked to do, or else you do it. And then you become resentful. And I think as people get overtly negative with each other, where they're saying horrible things sometimes, you talk about the negative self-talk. Well, sometimes it's like a person comes home and they do want to do something positive, but the self-talk they have in their head is, like, F that person, how dare they do this? Or, it's resentment, and it almost becomes passive aggressive.
Talia, I want to put this one on you.
Yeah, go on.
I'm not a young guy, and I'm not a really old guy, but I'm an experienced guy. And I'm a voyeur of life. And I've seen this occur in many women's lives somewhere around the age of 34 to 38.
Exact.
I got the numbers right, don't I? 34 to 38, they have this pivot epiphany. They're like, oh my God, this guy is driving me nuts. It's like, there is something better. In their mind, they're saying there is something better. But also, it's like the left and right hemisphere are at odds with each other. Look, we have a good life. We work well together. And the other side's like, I just can't stand this MFer. Have you come across that frequently in your travels and in your dealings with? And the reason I'm asking you is because of your feminine aspect.
Sure. So in that, are you saying that, women become more demanding as they age, or they want other things in the relationship?
No, there's these specific periods I see, and there's one between 34 and 38, and then there's another one at menopause. But that one at 34 to 38 is a reevaluation, it seems.
Well, I mean, let's think about what happens 34 to 38, right? Because for a woman, I would say we're getting to those last legs of fertility, right? So either at 34 or 38, you already have children, or you're thinking about children. So life is going to be a little different from what was the years that came before that.
Right.
The way that we look at it is that a partnership in marriage or any romantic relationship really exists on two tracks. That is the emotional track, what got you together in the first place, right? That's the connection, the chemistry, the sex, all of that. And then there's the functional track, which we talked about, the logistical, that we live under the same roof. We do the finances together. We do all of these things together. And when you disappoint your partner in the functional way, right? She has expectations from you to help pick up, to help lift the heavy bag, and you disappoint her in some way there. It affects her emotional, right? Her interest, her intimacy, her wanting to be with you on such a level. Those two are very much connected for women.
Yeah. What's funny is I went through a divorce a couple of years ago, so I was single for a couple of years. I would invite women over, and it would be okay until they came to my house.
Right.
And it would turn up once they got to my house. And
what did they see at your house?
I know. What's going on at your house?
Because I had furniture. My place was clean. and then my refrigerator was stocked, and then I usually cooked a meal.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
And my bathroom was fairly clean. And they were like, girl, he's got all his teeth. He can cook. He ironed his clothes.
Parents.
I'm going to do what I have to do to keep this one, even on aesthetics. And you realize something is just being overall conscious, because we're in a different state of being, which is we're no longer in the industrial age. We're in an age where the pendulum swung and it found an equilibrium, but to me it swung further the opposite way, where I see some things on the empowerment of women that could be enacted upon men that men were doing to women. Yeah. That's just how I see it as a OG.
The unfortunate part that happens if we don't come to that area as teammates is that it could create a parental relationship where the woman is, quote unquote, nagging the man, right, to help, to clean up, to do what he's supposed to do on the house front. And to the man, it feels like, hey, you're acting like my mom. And to the woman, it feels like, okay, but you're acting like my child.
Yeah.
And it's not something that can be sustainable as far as a sexual relationship, because it's a turnoff.
But what about this fact? Because starting from the 1960s, we saw a fracturing of the family, and it started off in the minority communities, and then it ventured out into everyone else. And I remember this when my children are 35 and 27. And I said, why are they in the house? And my wife would say, because their friends are at their other parents' house. I was like, ooh. But understanding that, I came from a home where my parents were divorced too. And I am just recently learning the techniques that you need to have a sustainable relationship. When you don't see that interaction and you base it on the input that you can get it from, which is television primarily, do you see that affecting couples and individuals that are coming to you guys as practices or practice?
Are you're talking about like a fear of a fractured family, or you're talking about the representation on the media of what?
No. So for instance, what you think a relationship is supposed to be is not based on anything in your reality. It is based on something that is from media or from stories or from what you've heard.
It's romanticized.
That is the biggest thing that we really want to dispel with this book, is that we think that most people are married roommates. We think that social media and television is portraying something completely opposite with these anniversary messages and how much you love family life and what an amazing couple we are. And the way that people promote their own personal lives, whether that's verbally or through other ways. And so if people have friends that are authentic, that can be honest about how difficult it is at various stages of life, whether it's financially, whether it's the difficulties couples have with one another, whether it's the difficulties they have in adjusting to parenthood, sometimes it's not safe to do that, or people don't feel it's safe. So they just all sort of project something. And I think that's sort of the tragedy that we want to dispel.
Well, I think that what we mean by that is that they're portraying something, and we're portraying something because we're culpable, right? We put best self on social media. We put up pictures of happy kids, happy life, and sometimes when people see that, they don't feel adjoining. They don't see you struggling, and you don't talk about that. And so you were talking about the fracturing of the family, but there's also a fracturing of the community, because the community, right? Remember the village? We don't have that anymore.
We really don't. And that was another point, because when I was a child, basically all my relatives lived within 4 blocks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
so you're at it alone now.
Yeah. And so if somebody tried to creep on somebody else, everybody knew.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody and their mama knew.
No, I feel like I almost think of that movie American Beauty a lot of times, because I think we only think of, we never know what's going on behind closed doors. I know plenty of couples that have a social media. I know their real life.
But even that idea before marriage of what marriage is, society promotes I was saying that even before marriage, right, as society promotes all the shiny, beautiful things about it, right, the engagement, the ring, the dress, and we're not really prepared for what a decades-long relationship is going to need from us. We go into it kind of blind, romanticizing, and then when things don't play out according to our visions, we think it's something wrong with our relationship, not with the system.
Well, we also have become a very selfish society that's very self-driven. And then you laugh because you agree, obviously. And like, I think, what it takes to have a family is a lot of selflessness, because it's not about you. You're taking care of your kids, you're supporting your partner, and right now it's like, how do people adjust from being selfish? I do what I want when I want. I can only watch it in short doses if I feel like it. Everything is on their terms. Yeah. And it's no longer that. And it is sort of, a really rude awakening for a lot of people.
So do you find that more men will talk to you, or do you find that more women will talk to you because they see it from an opposite point of view, and the opposite way around, where more men will talk to the female representation for therapy versus a male?
No, it's interesting that you say that, because I found that the majority of my individual clients are women. And the majority of my couple clients it's usually women initiating it, but picking me because of the fact that I'm a male and that their partner is resistant to going to see a female therapist for fear of being ganged up on. And so it's interesting because women are looking to get that other perspective. And in many ways, women don't trust other women to be honest. And so sometimes they're looking to sort of find the blind spots through a different perspective. And no, you're right. People do cross lines. I see that all the time.
Do you guys do issue therapy together as a couple, or is it individual sessions, or do you tailor it for your clientele?
Generally, we have run different practices, but there's crossover. So I could be seeing a couple together, and then Allen maybe sees one of them individually. So there's a lot of crossover.
Right. We definitely, it's not that we refer to each other, but I think people kind of know us together. So many people would be aware that I have a wife named Talia Wagner. And so, yeah, there's times where I'll send couples to her, individuals to her, and likewise.
Our style is very similar. We are results oriented. We're looking for people to have better tools, right? I hear a lot that people go to therapists and the therapist allows them to just kind of open it up, talk, and doesn't necessarily guide the session into usable tools that they walk out of there, and then their following week is a little bit better because of.
Do you guys have have some issues, because you're actually a very beautiful couple together? Do you feel any intimidation because of that when people see you together?
I don't think so.
Wait, in what way? What do you mean?
Because you guys look really good together, and people can. And I was looking at your pictures. I was like, these are beautiful people. Not that I'm,
Thank you.
I'm just saying. As a human being, I understand things that picture well.
Yeah.
And couples can know that you guys are a couple and make judgments because you guys look so well together. You see what I'm saying? Be like, how can they help us? They're perfect.
Oh.
I haven't gotten that, honestly. We also live in a land of beautiful people, right? We're from Los Angeles. So,
yes, you do.
Compared to what we see here, I don't think anybody would rate us as a beautiful couple. But look, I think that no matter what their perceptions are of us, once we start speaking, that changes. Right? Because we're able to cut through to the heart of it, and they know that we care. They know that we want better for them.
Yeah, I think people, like, from the moment that they call a therapist, that's really when they're assessing whether this person can help them. And I think people connect really easily to the things that we are going to work on with them when we talk to them on the phone. And so our conversion is great, but at the same time, I think we really focus on not making it a pathological thing. And I think that's their fear. No, I think, but a lot of times people look at it as like, oh my God, our relationship's a disaster. We're going to couples counseling. We're about to get divorced or break up. Yeah. And when they see it as something that's like, wait a second, no, you're not doing that. What you're doing is enhancing your skill set. You're looking at ways that, your toolbox is empty and refilling it. so that you can actually be more authentic as yourself. It's not about like turning people into something they're not, but it's helping them to communicate more authentically where they get the results they want. And we're not referee therapists. And I think our reputation around, at least in our area and probably past that, is that we're not going to let people fight on a couch for an hour, and we're not going to have this as an indefinite process. We really want to help them with legitimate goals.
Yeah. You know, we used to have these roles that put people in boxes, and those boxes were homemaker, breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is kind of a minority in this day and age where someone can, you know, I make the money, so I dictate this. And now it's in many instances, the woman is making as much or more than her spouse, or however you want to be configured in a couple. How are you guys able to help people understand that this is a different dynamic and that you have to have a reciprocal relationship in home and work life to not be roommates?
So, you know, there's a little bit of a complication with that, because you're right. Modern marriages demand equality, right? It can't be that the home is just on one person or work is just on one person. That it would collapse that way. But with that, many of us grew up in homes where that's what we saw. You know, it wasn't that long ago when that was a reality.
That really was.
You know what I mean? You only saw your mom maybe doing all of the things at home. And so we come to marriage a lot of times with these internal expectations that we're not even aware of.
Yeah.
And if we don't sit down and talk and like say, okay, well, here is the task of everything that we need to do that up. What ends up happening is that it's a lopsided system. And look, I think that there's also an issue where early on, it's easy. You know, you got 3 things to manage between the two of you. And let's say the woman's like, I got this. And then over time, those 3 things become like 300 things. And they don't sit down and kind of renegotiate that. And so it starts to feel, again, lopsided.
Yeah.
And also, just as in our line of work as well, you know, we're self-employed people. We have our own business. And so we've always sort of balanced that stay-at-home parent, working parent dynamic ourselves in the ways that we've juggled our family life. And so through that, we're very aware, and this is not just a politically correct thing to say, that doing the home things is actually much harder than doing the office things. It's not even close. This is not a time anymore where kids have a certain level of independence where they go out and play and they do their own thing and you get your stuff done. We have a very different type of dynamic going on between parents and children in today's world of fear, where people do not let their kids go outside anymore. So parents are now having to do a lot more parenting at home and a lot more organization at home. So it's a different kind of life. And I can tell you, and I'm sure you would agree because I can see you nodding, Talia, that the days that we would have as with young children, especially as stay-at-home parents, were far more challenging than us going to the office, commuting, and getting to talk to grown-ups.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. What about when you have blended families? Because that's a real issue where you can become roommates really quickly because you have outside influences that are just going to get your mind chatter flowing hard. And sometimes it's legitimate observations that you have, but you have this apprehension of hurting the dynamic, hurting your partner. Some people will suffer in silence. Some people will be like, I'm out. Deuces.
Yeah.
Look, blended families are probably the most complicated because, you know, there's not always the same loyalties among all members, right? Yeah. So you've got children, let's say, with one person, and then you get divorced, and then you get remarried, and there's a lot of conflicting emotions and expectations that happen. So they're not easy. And even more so, those couples must have clear communication. Because a lot of things, when we don't communicate deep enough, are, you know, we just kind of leave them open to assumptions and misinterpretations. And those are dangerous because, you know, the human mind often goes to worst case scenario.
Yeah, buddy.
That's what happens.
And I realize when you have a blended family, and I'll just tell it to you I've seen it more from the standpoint of the female. So she's like, I'm dating this other chick.
Yeah.
I literally have to have her counsel, whether bad or good. Very often we hear the negative that comes out of those. Every once in a while, you're like, how are they doing that? And it takes some maturity. What you guys are really promoting is that you really have to take yourself off the table and be like what the Bible says is you have to serve the greater good.
Yeah.
Well, you're a team now. You're not just you anymore.
Well, for sure. I mean, there's times where we've had couples come in to see us just on healthy separations, because the very thing that you're talking about, I come from a blended family myself, and I can just say, I won't get into my own personal history, but I will say that in my experience as a professional, that when there is a good collaboration happening between an ex and the partner, even in a remarriage situation, then you have kids that can look at this as extra support. There can be extra people in their life. And I've seen, couples where they do Christmases even together. Rare, but it does happen.
Rare.
But at the very least, they do connect, and they can be at birthday parties together. They can celebrate, graduations together. And so it is positive when that's happening. But when there is, some form of aggression happening between the ex and the current partnership, it's a tough place to be for either person, the person who was separated from that ex and the new partner. Definitely. They're using kids to sort of create problems sometimes.
Do you guys work with couples remotely?
Yeah, sure. We do.
So what platform, or how can people, if they have questions, how can they find you?
They can contact us at info@marriedroommates.com.
Okay. And do you do it like a Zoom or something like that, or a Skype or?
Yeah. So I think we both do relationship coaching for people who are outside of California, because as therapists, we're only allowed to practice within our state. So over the Skype platform, we'll work with people all over the United States as well as abroad.
Awesome. Do you guys do any workshops or videos, or what do you have for people that they can investigate you? Because, we live in a review society where before you used to just go to this book called The Yellow Pages, say Joe's Therapy and Ann's Therapy and Fred's Therapy. I don't like Fred, but I'm going to Joe. That was it. Today, when you're looking for a service or a product, first thing you do is see what they have and then see the reviews. So do you guys have that access for people?
So when you say that access for people, what the goal of putting the book out there is that access. This is a simple way for you to understand relationships. It's not filled with research-based or questionnaires that sometimes is heavy for people. We live in a really busy life.
Yeah, we do.
Some people just want to cut through the BS and just give it to us. Tell us what we need to do in order to be better, to be happier. And that was our goal, is to help people that, are standing on the road lost, not sure what do we do? I love this person, but there's so much resentment. There's been a wall that's built between us, and we don't know how to break through that. Our words are taken out of context. The person attacks us. We say it wrong. And so that was our goal, is to link out to those people and give them a simple tool. And so it's not even about us, it's about them.
Well, I think if people want to look up our credits and things like that, just to verify, because you're right. I think in this world, people don't want to be cheated. They all want to feel like there's not a scam happening. This person's legit. And so there's people who will check out our YouTube videos that people have, interviewed us on. There's one that I know gets a lot of things on the Andrew Hale show. People will listen to various podcasts that we've done. They'll look up reviews of our practice. They'll look at magazines we've been quoted in. So I think people want to see that we are legitimate professionals, and usually they do.
But, I think that there's also a little bit of a risk in modern society with that, because sometimes we get caught up in the analysis paralysis of it. We're more looking at things and trying to figure it out, and the content is what's important, right? Not our content, but the fix, right? Because you're going into it because you need something, you're looking for something, your home life is unhappy. And so sometimes we get caught up in that. It's just easy to. And I would say that the same thing has happened in dating, right? Like, you're looking for perfection now.
Yeah. Or do you see that there are differences between types of couple? For instance, racially blended couples versus, or income background diversity in couples, where somebody's like, hey, when I married this person, I hit a come up. and the mindsets are different over time. So do all these come into play that you guys can help people with?
Sure.
Well, I mean, can I take this?
Of course.
I know that when we're doing premarital counseling for sure, but it does come up in other situations of new couples, is every couple, and this isn't just racial, but every couple is coming from a different culture, the individuals. And there are people who are from the South, there are people who are religious or not religious, there's people who of different age groups, different socioeconomic status. And so they do need to navigate where they're both coming from and how they observe the world. And they do need to find some sort of middle ground and negotiate the culture of their family. And so I think sometimes when I have worked with interracial couples, just to your question, it's not really about one side being racist or fearful in that way. I think every extended family member of the couple is just concerned that what they put into their kid is going to go away, that it didn't matter, that the culture that they provided their kid is now going to be blended or whitewashed, and it's not going to exist anymore. And so I think it's important that couples navigate together something, and then they, tell their extended families and make it real.
Plus, as we age, culture becomes more important to us, right? And I don't mean just our background and our racial composition. It's the culture of our family. It's bringing back what our mom and dad taught us. And, when you got two people who have what their mom and dad, how do you navigate that? How do you come into one belief system, like a shared experience that you want to raise your kids with? So when you're in love and everything's great, you don't talk about those things.
No.
It's down the road, 15 years later, it's like, oh, I didn't know you wanted to raise our kid a certain religion.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so these things must be navigated. They must be talked about early years, and we just don't talk about them.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Now, you guys are in SoCal, right?
Correct.
Yeah, you're right. There are some, I seen like hot old ladies. I was in bathing suits. I was like, what? That's obtuse. But reaching out, you guys are coming from an influence factor where the geographic area you're located is where much of our relationship influence is being absorbed from, because it's coming out of there and it's part of permeating that culture.
Well,
The last question I'm going to ask you is do you find that there are some individuals within the relationship who simply don't have the communication tools for sustainability in the relationship?
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
how can you, what's the tactic to help them mature in their communication process? They like my wife, my second wife here, she was so pivotal. She would see my frustration and she would go calm, like, and she would say, all right, I know you're pissed. And I see you're frustrated. Use your words. And literally I would go, pain. Don't like that.
I think that you hit upon a really good point, which a lot of women have an issue with, because women just are socialized as communicators. They talk about their feelings, they share it, they gauge it, they talk about it with their girlfriends, and then they go into this relationship where a lot of times they don't get that. Like, men sometimes don't communicate with their feelings. I would say a lot, right? And so that becomes really difficult, because what is that commonality of speech, of understanding one another if you don't speak up? All we have to go on is what you say and what you do. We don't know the context in your head. We don't know kind of the subtext of that. And if you don't share it, the other person is just kind of free to make their own, their own assumptions.
Well, look, I think there's also been a major shift in 2019 than when I grew up, because I think men talking about their feelings in the past, that would have freaked other men out. And I think at this point now, here in 2019, especially when I see men who legitimately want to communicate authentically with their partners, they don't even know how to. No, and it wasn't something that was reinforced by their fathers. It wasn't something that was reinforced by their brothers and other role models. And so they come in sometimes knowing what they want to say, and we can help them define the words and also, give them through prompts and other kinds of tools, a habit making, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess just sort of where they basically need to go out and basically make this how they talk. And it may not be how they naturally talked, but it's really just about repetitive until you do talk that way. But when they see the results, it's reinforced and they're more likely to do it.
Well, I would even go a little further to say that when we are in the second act of life where we have a partner and we are now kind of a two-headed animal, we're a team, the level of sophistication has to grow. We need better tools than we had in Act 1 because these are just not sustainable anymore. So we got to stretch, we got to grow as human beings. Yeah. And that's okay. That's our duty, right? Is to improve ourselves, to get better.
Actually, one of the common themes from male peers who are in similar situations with their partner, I've asked this question, and because I was looking for confirmation, actually. And I got some confirmation, which is women use too many words, which means, for instance, my wife would be, and she's like, why haven't you said anything? I don't need to. I understood everything and there was no reply required. She was like, but you can at least give me a, I'm like, and we literally say this. I say, if I don't have anything to say, I'm a dude. And she goes, I go, literally, sweetie, I'm a dude. And I'm a dude of a certain age. So when I say something, it's really important. You should listen to it. Otherwise, it's important historically for men to be very succinct in their communication. Because if we're just chattering, hey man, we were in the bush the other day and there's this gray monkey over there versus there's a tiger.
Right. Well, I mean, to what your point is, I totally agree. But the other thing to consider is that when people stay silent, then in a way they lose their ability to hold the steering wheel. And then they become, especially with men, they become resentful of the life they're living in because they didn't either contradict or offer different ideas. And so the life is basically built by someone else. The home is built by someone else. They just sort of quietly and passively exist. And then they wake up 10 years later hating their life or feeling invalidated, but it was their own fault because they never really advocated for themselves or ever even took the time to figure out what they wanted.
Good point. But what about these couples who don't communicate, but they talk a lot?
But what are they talking about?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. They're. I've heard this from people who are having problems. We talk all the time, but what are you saying?
Right. What are you saying? Because is it just fluff? Are you just filling?
Well, exactly. We have interventions that we give couples too, where the rules of it is you don't get to talk about your relationship. You don't get to talk about your kids. You don't get to talk about your house. You can't talk about your friends and their relationships. You can't talk about your family. You can't talk about movies. You can't talk about sports, politics. You can talk about all of those things for hours with anyone. It doesn't have to be your partner.
Yeah. But it won't.
It doesn't move the needle or connect people. It's just basically interesting.
Listen, you can have great roommates, right? Friendly roommates that you hang out with. You can also have really bad roommates that you see them in the hallway and then go into your room and don't look at them. But they're also roommates.
Yeah.
And that's, and
it doesn't change your life.
It really doesn't. So
changing your life and navigating it together, that's real communication. Knowing that 3 months from today is going to be different than today. That doesn't happen when you're just having, banter back and forth. Every day is Groundhog Day.
All right. So I'm going to really shift the conversation here. I'm going to stop talking about exactly what you do. And I'm going to ask you how you got there from a business standpoint, because part of it is understanding that you guys have a business, or individually you have a business. And this is one of the key things that I want to spotlight on the Billionaire Lifestyle. When you graduate and you figured out you're going to be your own person, what did you have to learn? And, many doctors and therapists and individuals who gain an education they gain the education in how to perform said function, but they don't know how to run a business. What did you guys have to learn as far as marketing and business licensing and so forth to make your business sustainable?
So I would say that it was a little bit simpler for us in that regard, only because I come from a business background. So I inherently understood a lot of those things like marketing and, the work you have to do on your business rather than just the work you actually do. Whatever your professional orientation is different than what you actually have to put into your business to put it out there and to make it palpable to other people. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's not, it's a lot of side work that maybe you weren't counting on. And I think that as we move towards this new entrepreneurial lifestyle, a lot of people are choosing not to work for someone else for 30 years and then get a plaque.
Right.
They want to do it for themselves. And I think that part of that means that they have to do the work, but then do the work to promote themselves.
Well, and thankfully we live in a society where a lot of people are doing this right now. So if a person has a curiosity or an interest in learning, through YouTube podcasts like yours, there's always an opportunity for somebody to enhance their skills and to teach themselves new things. That does require a sort of self-leadership that you don't really get when you're an employee. So it is different being a business person and a therapist or a doctor, but we have to really understand our marketplace and know who we're speaking to and then figure out what's the best way to authentically communicate who we are and what we do.
Well, to piggyback on what Allen just said, when you work for someone else, they provide the structure for you. They tell you what time you have to be there, what you have to do, what their expectations are. And when you work for yourself, you have to provide the structure. Yeah. You have to, working from home is a difficult thing for a lot of people, right? Because they don't know when work starts and when work ends.
That's true. I'm familiar with that.
Right? And so it requires a different skill set, but I think that one of the really exciting things is that we are able to do so these days, right? That if you have a little burning desire inside, you can run all the way to success with it. Nobody's stopping you.
Well, I mean, your audience probably can't see the backdrop behind you, or maybe they can, but it looks amazing. And you did that yourself.
Yes.
And you didn't have to hire somebody to build a studio for you. And yet at the same time, it looks like there's a studio and it looks amazing.
Well,
and so I think we are in a world right now where you do have to develop other skill sets. It can't just be what you're good at. It has to be the marketing and the business and the financial aspects of it as well.
Well, I always say that you can be the best at what you do. You could be the best doctor. You could be the best psychologist. You could be the best, whatever kind of skill set or service you offer. But if you don't have a marketing arm and a way to get that out to the people, they will never know.
Yeah, we had that one person who explained it as a billboard, an underground billboard, that you could have the most amazing billboard that no one will ever see.
That's a good one. That's a very good one, how to put that together. Well, guys, I really want to thank you for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast.
Thank you so much for having us. We
enjoyed it. It was a fun time. Thank you so much.
And let's catch up within 8 months.
Okay. That would be cool.
I'm just put that in your calendar. Say, we got to call Emmett.
That would be great. This has been fantastic.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is how we depart from you for the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. Realize this. You came to this planet, and this is a specific reality that you have control over because we were given this thing freely. It's called free will. You can do what you want. You can do whatever you want in your relationship, but there are consequences to your free will. With free will comes responsibility. It's not always about you. It's up to you to develop you to be the best you that you were going to be so that everyone else will benefit as well as yourself. When you get out the shower, remember, drop your towel and look at yourself how you came to this existence, bare and naked, because that is the essence of you. That is the bare essence of you. Go to the mirror and realize that you are such a special creature because man even if I have all the tools that comprise you, I cannot put you together and make you. It is a special process for that. I want you to revel in the fact, the color of your skin. I want you to revel in the fact that you have maybe a little flab here, a little stretch mark there. You may have a mole, or you may have a hole in your afro like I do. It's still you. And I want you to get close too, because this is the point where we see how things are fractal and connected. Look in your eye, look in the iris, and see how it contracts as you let more light in, or not enough light, it contracts and expands. It is exactly like a nebulae in the sky. Till next time, love you all. Peace.